Jingle bells. Hello, this is Asiacaster here from Shanghai, China, and today's video is what is going on with LAOWHY86 and Serpentzza recently. Let's go. Hey guys, a quick second before I start this video. I appreciate all the subscribers. I don't have many, I'm just getting started out, and it means a lot to me, all these early subscribers. If you're interested in Asia or just want to watch some interesting food videos, I got a bunch of Asia food videos coming that are pretty sweet. I just did a Domino's one, Chinese Domino's, which is better, Chinese or American Domino's. I had a clear winner, and that's coming out, and hope you enjoy. Back to the video, and thank you. I know I got burnt. It is what it is. Serpentzza LAOWHY86. Let's get into it. So Serpentzza and LAOWHY86, I've been watching both of their channels. They have very similar channels and similar topics. The way they're set up. For probably since 5 to 6 years ago, probably 2013 to 14, all the way up until 2017 to 18ish. So around that 4-year period, I watched pretty much every single one of both of their videos. And for the last year or two, I haven't been watching their videos as much. I do check them out, but I think their content has changed drastically over the past year or two. And that is what I'm going to talk about right now. I have my theories of why. Their attitude towards China has changed pretty drastically, in my opinion. It seems like they have a stronger negative feel towards China, and their videos are getting more negative, as you probably have noticed if you follow their channel. First thing, I don't think that anything they're doing is wrong. I mean, they can have negative opinions. They have freedom of speech. Personally, it's not the content I like, but I think these two guys are smart guys. They know what they're doing, and I think there's a reason for why their content is going so negative. And that's what I'm going to talk about, maybe some personal things, and also just to get their channel. That's what people want to see. So first, I want to show you here on my screen here. I pulled up both of their YouTube channels and their Instagram channels, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about how their content has changed. So let's first check that out, and I'll show you the past recent year and a half of content, and then some of the maybe like 3 to 4 years what I was watching before, how the content has changed. So let's check that out. Alrighty, so here's Serpentzza. I think he has a little bit more subscribers. Let's see, he has 600. I thought he had more than 600K, but they both have 350, and Serpentzza has 580K subscribers. So let's check out the recent videos. I think Serpentzza has been even more negative than LAOWHY86 from what I've researched in their channels and their content before I made this video. But they certainly both have similar vibes. So let's check these videos out. I mean, just look at the titles. I guess it really describes mainland China's worst societal. I don't mind. First of all, let me say I don't mind that they're talking negative stuff. They always have talked negative stuff, and that's kind of why I like their channel, but now they are 100% negative. Really, essentially 100% negative. And that's kind of why I stopped watching the channels. I liked them being honest and being straightforward, and I felt bad for them before for getting so much hate from, those Wu Maos or 50 Cent Army, whatever they say. But now they kind of, I don't want to say deserve it, but their content is negative, so they're going to bring that hate. And maybe, it's negative for a good reason, or it's negative because of things that they have experienced, which is kind of what I'm going to get to. But here's all the content for the past year. China has awful role models. If you watch these videos, you'll see how they're negative, but the titles are pretty, most of them are pretty negative. And I would say, let's see, if you go for a long way back, maybe a couple of years or something, they're really just like casual videos, nothing negative at all, really. Sometimes in the videos, he'll point out some of the negatives of China, but, it's just what's happening, China versus India, risk, failure, interesting. I don't know, I like these Chinese drones, he would go out with his buddies and just, drink some beers and chat about some interesting China topics, talk about life and China, but not on the 100% negative lens. So that's That's kind of the change of content. And LAOWHY86 is very similar. I'm not going to go to those, go through all of them as much, but you know, they're kind of attacking a little bit negative view and how China destroyed me. Talking about what they say is those camps or whatever. I don't mind. Again, I don't mind negativity, but when every single video it's just not my cup of tea. Where before, let's see, I would say a couple of years ago. Yeah, I would say you know, over here when they start, you know, they made their bike videos. That was cool. And they would just ride around their bikes, or maybe, you know, have interesting videos that weren't just trying to bash China. Now let's go to the Instagram, which I think is even more interesting. They're getting very active on Instagram. They're doing a couple things on Instagram that are specifically, if you understand China, and maybe if you've been here, you understand that they're specifically trying to attack Chinese people, which I'm sure they have been attacked by Chinese people before. Maybe this is trying to get revenge or something. But essentially the Instagrams are just like almost propaganda against China. I know right now there's a lot of, let's look at, there's a lot of negative hate towards China, but let's see, recently in America, there's a couple like of these, let's see, okay, here's, okay, look at this one. This is the Taiwan one. Now, let's look at this. It says, happy birthday to one of my favorite countries in the world. Now, if you understand China or have been here, you understand that Taiwan and the word country are extremely, extremely hot topics here. And they're going to offend billions of people. I'm not saying that you can't say anything to offend people, but you could just leave out that word. It's my favorite place in the world. And he knows that when he's typing that word country, that he's going to offend a billion people. And you don't need to type that word in. It's not like it's making any difference. I know Taiwan, even Chinese people, most Chinese educated people understand Taiwan is essentially its own place, but it's its own country essentially. But you can't call it to call it that with Chinese people saying it's not going to be not the best idea. Serpentza is worse. Serpentza is all. Look at this. This is a slap in the face to Chinese people here. This is a map of China, and essentially he says China looks like a chicken. But if you understand China, you know he's not posting this because China looks like a chicken. He's posting it because of this baby right here. Taiwan is not red. Essentially, he's just trying to infuriate Chinese people. Where maybe if you don't understand the situation, you might not notice this baby. But people who understand this, you know, China, it's clear that he's just punching Chinese people. And that's where a lot of the posts are really just attacking Chinese people. So their attitudes have changed. Why has this happened? Now let's get into why. So now the more interesting and speculative part of this video is why this change has occurred, now that you've seen that this change has occurred. So I think first thing to look at is Chinese people. Have Chinese people changed and made these two YouTubers change their attitude towards China and change their content? No. Obviously, Chinese people are still Chinese people. How about the Chinese government? Has the Chinese government changed and maybe made them change their attitude towards China? I think that's where it's worth looking more deeply into what's going on there. I don't think the Chinese government has changed in their goals. Anyone who understands China understands that the Chinese government, which is an autocracy, essentially, they care really about one thing in the most aspects. Everything they do goes back to this one main principle, and that's they want to stay in power and stay in power forever. As any autocracy goes, if they lose power, if Xi Jinping and the leaders of China lose power somehow, there's a rebellion or something, they're screwed. Their families are screwed. Their lives, they'll be put in prison probably at the best, and they could be killed, and the lives are essentially over. So their main goal is to keep China going and they want to stay on top. which is kind of obvious, but that goes down to everything they do. So, for example, the internet is censored, right? And information is censored, and all Chinese people, everything they consume is censored by the government, essentially. And so when you have these two YouTubers who probably in the beginning days they had 50, 100,000, 200,000 subscribers, maybe they didn't really care. But once these two guys starting to get over around 500,000 subscribers and whatnot, and really have some influence. China not only cares, one of the things China really cares about is also its image in the West and around the world. So when China has a bad image around the West, they're going to be worried. So that is where I think this might come in. Once they got a little bit more popular, the Chinese government, I don't know how, I'm not going to speculate on exactly what the Chinese government has done. I know a couple years ago they were saying, I remember I saw Prazi say that he was followed home by the police once. I don't really believe that. I'm not really sure, but he's not as big of a YouTuber as these other guys. But I remember the last couple of years they've been saying that the police and maybe the Chinese government has kind of started interfering with their lives. And I don't think they really felt that probably before. I know me as a citizen, not a citizen in China, as a person living in China, I don't feel that. But I think that is something that has gone on, and I think it's kind of counteractive. It's kind of funny because the Chinese government, what they want is these guys to make good content about China. And I think at that point that the Chinese government maybe started to intervene with these couple YouTubers' lives maybe a couple of years ago, their content wasn't all that negative. Although it did have some negatives, which maybe pissed off the Chinese government. It was not like purely negative. And from what I am theorizing is that when the Chinese government started interfering, well, this had a bad effect. This had the unintended consequences that it is making these two YouTubers who have 100% freedom to post wherever they want outside of China, to make them have a worse view of China, which makes them make even worse content. And the Chinese government, they can't control the content on YouTube, right? In the West, they could say, oh, Chinese people can't see this content, but they can't. It's hard for them to control the West view of them, even though they really care about that. So I think that is one thing that has possibly happened, and they're kind of almost revolting in a way against the Chinese government. And these two guys also have families now. Things have changed in their lives, of course. I'm sure when they have families, I know LAOWHY86 has moved to America with his daughter and Vivi. So he has maybe a little more freedom. I'm interested also with, right now, with there being so negative, I don't know their future, what their future relationship will be with China. For example, I know Serpentza has been outside of China for a while. I don't know if he's even allowed to go back. As funny as that sounds, like, obviously the Chinese government does not like him right now, and doesn't like probably doesn't like LAOWHY86, but I think they both, I mean, they don't have to go back to China, but I think they have Chinese wives, and they're kind of, it's part of their lives where I feel like it might be interesting, are they allowed? They seem, I haven't been following too closely, but it seems like they have not been back to China much, but that's an interesting dynamic. Like they're because China can't control them outside of China, but what they can control is them not coming back into China. So they obviously know that, and maybe they're just, if they can't go back to China, they're like, whatever. I'm not sure, but you'd think they would be understanding of that situation, and what they say, they might get in trouble with the Chinese government in that way. And the other thing, so that's the first point, is the Chinese government. And the other thing, the other point is viewership. But before I get into the viewership thing, I remember talking about the negativity. I would always watch Serpentza's videos, and he would call them oh man, I forgot, like Crazy Uncle or something. If you guys watch, you guys know what I'm talking about. Is when he's filming on the street or doing something on the street. There's all these maybe 50-year-old, 60-year-old male Chinese guy who's always suspicious that he's a spy and stuff. Foreigners are all spies and stuff. And they're always looking at him and reporting him. I think this doesn't really happen much. If you live in China, you know that. I think maybe Serpentza, if you notice, LAOWHY86 doesn't really mention that stuff. Maybe, I think he's a little paranoid, to be honest. But also he's wearing a suit, and I don't wear suits outside all the time. But I think the Chinese people in all these big cities, they're all used to foreigners and wearing suits, and they don't, it's not like when they see a foreigner, they're going to think they're a spy generally, on the average situation. That was just that. So the second point of why I think their content has changed is viewership. I mean, their whole goal as YouTubers, you got to look at their motivation and what they're trying to do. They're trying to increase viewership, which is, which makes sense, right? This is their job. They're full-time YouTubers. So they want to just look at the statistics and metrics. They want to increase those babies. And I know that's why the titles have changed. The titles have changed more negative, but the titles have been more crazy titles to get your eyes to look at it and click on the video. And that's when I started not watch the videos as much. I almost just got tired of their titles. And they were all like gimmicky titles. But I think that's also with the content. I know there's a lot of negative thoughts towards China recently in the US. And I think people want to see what they believe, So there's a lot of belief and people who starting to have a little bit of negative feelings towards China, and maybe that's what gets more views. Simply said, maybe the negative attitude, they realize, well, this gets us more views. I'm not sure. This is obviously very speculative. Obviously, they believe what they're saying too, but I think to a degree, maybe part of this is views, which is understandable. Nothing wrong with that. And so I think that's probably in the past year or two, they're going with the vibe of the negative feelings, and I think they personally have felt some negative vibes that has influenced the content. So that's essentially my thoughts. Tell me what you think. Kind of just randomly ranted on these two guys. I've enjoyed their content, and I think they're older content more or less, but I don't think what they're doing is wrong. They could have a negative opinion towards China. I just wanted to kind of talk about why I think it changed and what's going on. Cool. Subscribe. I'm doing some maybe more interesting videos than this one. If you're not a fan of those two guys, I'm not sure how interesting that was, but I'm doing like straight up food reviews, like I said in the beginning of the video, and a bunch of Asia, China, cool stuff that doesn't exist on YouTube. So stay tuned. Okay, I just wanted to add this because when I turned the camera off, I'm like, oh, I forgot to say that. That'd be good to say. I think some people might ask me my opinion towards their attitudes changing, and how I feel about their negative attitude towards China right now. And like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they're saying in the sense that they have the freedom to say what they want, and that's fine. It's not the content exactly I want to see, but I think they can they could say whatever they want. That's freedom of speech, right? Although I do think it is kind of driving that negative attitude towards China more, that is recently. And I think that is not a good thing exactly, in my opinion, in that right now maybe we have some tensions with China right now. And I think if there's too much negativity, people can't even think rationally about the other country and try to understand the other country because they just have those negative thoughts. And I think that's not good overall. I wish people would understand China more and the negatives and the good and the bad things. And so I think maybe people aren't getting as clear a picture about China, and they're just getting the bad things, especially in the media. I mean, people are getting thrown negative stuff about China in the media in America and in the West, I guess, in general. So personally, I wish people were maybe more open, more of a clean slate, and could try to understand China more, rather than they don't understand China and then they're watching these videos and this is their first impression of China, and that's all they have. But I guess that's just on people to get more educated themselves. So yeah.